Okay, if I can bring this meeting to order, please. Thank you very much. And a very warm welcome to those attending the Major Applications Planning Committee meeting and to our viewers watching live on the Council's YouTube channel, Hillingdon, London. My name is Councillor Steve Tuckwell and I am the Chairman of this committee. Details of the business to be considered today are shown on the agenda, copies of which are accessible online and underneath the live broadcast. For those present in the room and intending to speak this evening, please note that you will be filmed and any statement that you make will be recorded and made public. A reminder to anybody speaking today that your voice will only be audible online if the microphone is switched on. In terms of evacuations and fire alarms, we are not expecting a drill this evening, so if the alarm does go off, can I please ask that you follow officers to the fire exits and out of the building to the designated meeting points. For mobile tablets and devices, could I ask politely that you switch those either off or to silent, but I'd also ask that you note that members and officers this evening will have a device in front of them to view the agenda paperwork. Okay, before we go into the meeting proper, I'm going to do some introductions because there's quite a few people around the table here this evening. So I'm going to start with the voting members this evening and I'll introduce those one by one. So first and foremost we have Councillor Bennett, who's our Vice Chairman. We have Councillor Cawthorne. We have Councillor Davis, Councillor Dott, Councillor Gaelic and Councillor Gill. Good evening to you, councillors. But we'll also see that we have a number of officers supporting this evening's proceedings and I'll introduce those one by one as well. So first and foremost we have Councillor, I think he promoted you then. We have Mandip Malhotra, our Major and Strategic Planning Applications Manager. We have Alan Tilley, who is our Transport and Highways Development Manager. We have Chris Brady, who is a Principal Planning Officer. We have Michael Brigginshaw, who is also a Principal Planning Officer. Richard Phillips, welcome Richard, who is a Principal Planning Officer. I have Sihar Arshed, Senior Planning Lawyer. Glenn Egan, Head of Legal Services. And bringing us all together this evening, just sat to my left here, is Ryan Dell, our Democratic Services Officer. So hopefully I haven't missed anybody. That's good. So we can now move into the actual agenda itself. So we'll start off with agenda item 1, Ryan. Apologies for absence.
Yeah, we have apologies from Councillor Roy Camdow with Councillor Davis substituting.
Okay, and thank you very much, Councillor Davis, for substituting this evening. We can move on to agenda item 2, which is declarations of interest in matters before this meeting. Have I seen any declarations of interest? No? Okay, we can note that down, Ryan. Agenda item 3 is to agree the minutes of the previous meeting of the 25th of April on pages 1 to 5 of the agenda bundle. Can I take those as agreed, please? Okay, thank you. Agenda item 4, matters notified in advance or urgent. There aren't any this evening. And agenda item 5 is to confirm there's two parts to these meetings. Part 1 is in public, which this meeting is in this evening. There are no scheduled part 2 or private items. The agenda this evening will take place in the order published, and there are no petition items this evening. Okay, right, that's the first part of the agenda and the Chairman's announcements dealt with. We can now move on to our first application this evening, which is agenda item 6, Hyatt Place, 27 Uxbridge Road. Are you taking us through that, Richard? Okay.
I am, Chairman, thank you.
Over to you.
Yes, item 7 relates to the site at 27 Uxbridge Road, known as Hyatt Place. And I've just brought up the location plan there so you can see that. This application was previously deferred from the last Majors Committee meeting in April, mainly due to clarification required as to the hotel use, and in particular the length of stay and whether this could be restricted by condition and on the management of the site, particularly as regards to the operation of the proposed transport initiatives proposed. At this point, can I just direct members to the addendum sheet, which includes one item for this application, which relates to the heads of terms regarding the active travel zone. So the proposal is for the partial demolition of the existing building, followed by refurbishment, side extensions and upwards extensions alongside erection of perimeter blocks around a podium level to increase hotel capacity, which falls within Class C1 use, whilst introducing industrial uses, Class CG2 and Class G3 at ground and first floor level. The proposal seeks to increase the operational capacity of the existing hotel use with the addition of 2 C-shaped perimeter buildings sited around the edge of the site, together with an upward extension of the existing 12-storey building by 2 storeys. The proposal would also introduce 1,318 square metres of industrial floor space on the ground and first floors. So the site forms part of a designated strategic industrial site within which hotel use would not normally be considered appropriate, but given that the existing hotel use of the site is lawful and long established, no objections can be raised. And more recently, permission has also been granted for hotel use on the adjoining site at 15 to 17 Uxbridge Road. Importantly, and an important positive benefit of this scheme, the proposal would introduce industrial uses on the lower floors of the building, compatible with the site's industrial designation. Hotel uses should also follow town centre first principles, where town centres are the preferred locations for such uses, and should only be permitted outside of more central locations when it has been demonstrated that there are no sequentially preferable sites available. The application is supported by a sequential test, which has been reviewed by the Council's Planning Policy Officer, and they concur that there are no sequentially preferable sites available for this proposal. Officers therefore raise no objections in principle. In terms of scale and massing, whilst the proposal scale would be somewhat out of scale with surrounding buildings, the increase in height compared to the existing building would be relatively minor, and it would have a similar overall impact on the skyline as compared to the existing situation. The proposal would also significantly improve the landscape setting of the building, with the width of the planted roadside boundaries greatly increased, and internal landscaped podium areas would also be provided for hotel guests. This increase in the greening of the site is demonstrated by applying the GLA's urban greening factor, which achieves a score of 0.39 against the recommended score for commercial development of 0.3, a significant improvement. This does also need to be compared against the current situation, where the existing building is almost entirely surrounded by hardstanding with minimal boundary planting. The proposal would not give rise to any unacceptable impacts on any surrounding residential property, the nearest of which are located on the northern side of the Uxbridge Road. There would be a significant reduction in site-wide parking on site, which is supported by Transport for London and the Council's Highway Officer, on the basis that sustainable travel initiatives are secured by the Section 106 agreement, including contributions to improve the active travel zone. Officers consider the proposed mixed-use scheme would make significant efficiency improvements in the use of the site and is therefore acceptable. So I will just take you through the plans. So this shows the constraints on site. The yellow area shows the industrial designation, and on the far west, the green area shows the Minute Country Park and the green belt designation. So it's just another slide showing the site's location in relation with the surrounding buildings, which is more clearly defined there. So this site is of the existing block plan, with the hotel centrally sited, surrounded by surface level car parking. So this is the existing basement floor plan, so the basement is very limited on site. So this shows the existing ground floor plan. Again, that's the existing first floor plan. And I think these plans just go up the building, so that's the second floor plan existing. Third floor existing plan. Fourth floor. Fifth floor. Sixth floor. Seventh floor. Eighth floor. Ninth floor. 10th floor. 11th. And the 12th floor. And this shows the existing roof plan. And again, this shows an existing north and west elevations of the building. Existing south and east elevations. This shows an existing section. So now we come on to the proposed plans. So this is the proposed basement plan. Obviously the yellow denotes the communal surface corridor. This is the proposed ground floor plan. The blue denotes the proposed light industrial employment floor space. The yellow area denotes the communal lobby area serving the hotel. And the green turquoise denotes hotel bedrooms. So again, this is the proposed first floor plan. The yellow areas denote the communal hotel space, which includes a lounge, restaurant, event space, and gymnasium, spa, and sauna facilities. To the top there, these are 3 artists' studios, and the orange area on the right of the screen shows hotel bedrooms, and the blue there just shows the mezzanine floor space of the industrial units below. So again, the proposed second floor plan, again it shows further communal hotel lobby restaurant space, coloured orange, and on the outside there are also in a darker shade of orange are the additional hotel bedrooms. 3 sizes of hotel bedrooms are being proposed to cater for the variety of occupants. And also you can see on the left there that there's an area of internal courtyard shown. Again, moving up to the proposed third floor, again this follows the same sort of format as the second floor plan. And again, this is the proposed fourth floor plan, showing the various types of hotel bedroom. Again, same on the 5th floor, 6th floor, 7th floor. Obviously the building is being recessed on to the south of the site as we move up the building. There's a proposed 8th floor, 9th floor, 10th floor, 11th floor, 12th floor, get onto the 13th floor, and this shows the proposed roof plan of the site, showing the perimeter buildings surrounding the retained hotel building in the middle. So this shows the proposed inner north and west elevations. This shows the proposed inner south and east elevations in the proposal. This is the proposed central east and west elevations, showing the main bulk of the retained extended hotel building in the middle. And this shows proposed outer north and west elevations. So at the top there, that is the elevation that you would see from the Uxbridge Road, whereas on the south there, that is the elevation of the site that you would see on Springfield Road. So again, these are proposed outer south and east elevations. And this shows proposed sections of the building. So you see that the perimeter blocks are at a much lower height than the extended central hotel block. So we come on to the landscaping proposal. So this is a illustrative landscaping master plan. Again, this just concentrates on the boundary planting in a bit more detail. And again, this shows some of the proposed planting that will be utilised on the facades of the building. So the building facades will be greened. And this just shows the hard landscaping plan. And this shows the illustrative soft landscaping plan. And this is the plan that's been used to come up with the urban greening factor on site. So it achieves a score of 0.39, which is well in excess of the requirement for a 0.3 factor. So this shows the bird's eye view of the site, and as you can see, there's very little in the way of planting on site at the moment, and the hotel building in the middle there is largely, almost completely surrounded by existing car parking. So getting onto the photographs now, and this is a photograph of the building taken from Springfield Road. Again, that photograph is also taken from Springfield Road. And there you can just see the adjacent access. I believe that serves the Scottish and Southern Electricity Depot. Again, that shows the photograph of the building taken slightly further along on Springfield Road. That's a very good close-up of the building. Again, that shows the building on Uxbridge Road, taken a little bit along to the east. Again, that's a very similar photograph. And that shows the site further along to the east, and the Hillingdon Borough boundary is way in the distance there. And that shows a picture of the building as seen front on from Uxbridge Road. And again, that shows the building on the opposite corner of the Uxbridge Road and Springfield Road junction. Again, that's a slightly different view taken from a similar site. Again, that mainly shows the adjoining retail park on the opposite side of Springfield Road, with the building on the left there. Again, that shows the building taken slightly further to the west on Uxbridge Road. And again, that's taken a lot further west, which obviously shows the visual impact of the existing building. And again, that's taken even further along. And again, so as I said previously, the application was deferred from the April Majors Committee meeting in order to allow clarification on the hotel use, and in particular the length of stay and whether this could be restricted by condition, and also due to concerns raised on the management of the site, in particular on the operation of the proposed transport initiatives. The applicant has provided a written response to the concerns and queries raised, which has been circulated to members, and they have also submitted a minibus shuttle service management plan. To summarise the applicant's response, they advise that the application is for hotel use, and any other use would require further planning permission. The proposed hotel is proposing a facility aimed primarily at business and leisure users, and this market has seen significant growth since the COVID-19 outbreak, with a shift in flexible working and living patterns. The applicant goes on to advise that consultants have been employed to finely tune the accommodation so that it meets market needs and demands and will be commercially sustainable. Commercial partnerships with local businesses will be entered into, and the applicants are also in discussions with Hayes Town Centre Partnership, West London Business Alliance and the Hillingdon Chamber of Commerce, who have all provided input into the hotel strategy. The corporate partnerships will allow businesses to block book rooms on an annual basis for workers wishing to stay near company headquarters and for business travellers and placements. The accommodation is focused on a mid-budget price point, and there will be a heavy focus on the health and well-being of its guests, including a spa and wellness centre with meditation and exercise studio and a swimming pool, and also food and drink provision. The hotel rooms will include a double bed, ensuite bathroom, reading and relaxation space, and 2 hobs and a sink for guests to cook light meals, the design of which has been informed by the consultants based on current needs and demand of hotel guests in the Hayes area. The applicant will manage the hotel, and it will be fully serviced on a 24-hour basis with front-of-house security and cleaning staff, and staff for managing the wider hotel facilities. As regards the length of stay, the applicants advise that hotel developments do not have restrictions on length of stay, as it is not necessary at the planning stage to control the operational use of the hotel, a position which the courts have upheld. Whether or not a hotel functions lawfully under a Class C1 use class comes down to a range of factors relating to its overall character and nature, and the applicant has proactively sought to define these characteristics with officers and council lawyers, and has included them in the hotel management strategy, and its adherence will form a legal obligation in the Section 106 agreement. Amongst other matters, the hotel management strategy will record booking records and are to be provided to the LPA on a 6-monthly basis. As regards the 90-day rule, the applicant advises that this does not apply to hotels, but rather seeks to protect existing housing stock in London from short-term letting, and it triggers the need for planning permission to be obtained where housing stock is being used for short-term accommodation. There is no planning law, policy or guidance that controls the length of stay in hotels, and such a restriction, based on current case law, would be unlawful. However, the applicant advises that they do wish to work with the council proactively and do respect the concerns raised by members previously, and to this end is willing to fund the monitoring of the hotel strategy for a 10-year period at a total review cost of £20,000 over this period. This will make its operation completely transparent. The applicant also advises that funding for the hotel use has been raised on the basis that it will only be operated as a Class C1 hotel, and evidence to this effect has been shared with officers. The applicant also advises that the shuttle minibus service will be incorporated into the Green Travel Plan, and the details of a minibus shuttle service management plan would be required by Condition 15. This will require details of the service to be agreed with officers prior to occupation of the hotel bedrooms, and services can be reviewed based on demand on service frequency, can be adjusted to ensure that it optimises the most sustainable way of supporting travel to the site that reduces trips on the highway. The routing of the service will provide a direct link to Southall or Hayes and Harlington stations, which provide good connections with London and beyond via the Elizabeth line. The applicant commits to at least 2 minibuses being provided, and these will be fully electric and free of charge to hotel guests. The applicant also notes that Condition 18 restricts coaches and their access on the site, and the legal definition of a coach is classed as a vehicle with over 16 passenger seats. The submitted draft minibus shuttle service management plan does specify that the minibuses would have a maximum of 16 seats. The applicant's response concludes by listing the green credentials of the development, and advises that 4 additional conditions requested by members have been agreed. Namely, Condition 11 to specifically include fire safety details for microwaves, the construction environmental management plan condition to exclude deliveries between 7 and 9 and 3 to 5 p.m, a new condition requiring only access into the site from Springfield Road, and a new condition requiring mechanical ventilation on hotel bedrooms. These conditions have been revised and updated, with the exception of the last one regarding mechanical ventilation, and this will need to be added. Officers consider that the clarifications and revisions provided by the applicant do assist in providing a more comprehensive picture of the hotel accommodation proposed, and it is clear that there is no justification for imposing a length of stay restriction which is likely to be unlawful. Whether the site operates as a Class C1 use is a matter of fact and degree, and given the overall operational nature of the accommodation being proposed, with a fully staffed reception area being the only means of access egress and rooms being fully serviced, together with the length of stay being carefully monitored through the hotel management strategy, it is considered that the applicant has gone as far as possible to allay members' concerns. Other additional safeguards are welcomed, and the additional measures proposed as regards the shuttle bus operation are considered beneficial in terms of enhancing the potential of this service to reduce car trips and mitigate the possible impacts of the proposal. It is therefore considered that members' concerns have been addressed, and the application is recommended for approval, subject to the recommended conditions in Section 106 agreement. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, Thank you for taking us through that, Richard. Very extensive. Second outing for this application for most of us around the table. But before we get to the debates, we have no petition on this, so there's no external speaking rights, but we do have a couple of officers that want to just give us a verbal update. I do want to hear from Glenn as well in relation to what we've just heard around the 90-day situation, which we debated at length last time. But we've also got a statement here from two ward councillors for the ward in question, so we'd like to hear from them now. So members can take that into account when we go to the discussion in a few moments' time. So Ryan, would you like to read that out?
Yes, this is from Councillor Mathers and Councillor Core, who are two of the ward councillors for the application site. We appreciate the committee works to date and the assurance that no construction deliveries will take place during school hours, but would request an extension to the non-delivery hours to the site to the later time of 6:30 p.m. due to the significantly heavy during rush hour traffic on the Uxbridge Road. We would also ask for enforcement to ensure that the HGVs do not wait on local residential roads during these non-delivery times. We also wish to highlight that a shuttle bus does not alleviate our concerns regarding the potential increased traffic and parking requirements due to the expanded hotel, especially if kitchenettes provided extended stays. We would not wish to see further traffic and parking problems arise, especially in the Springfield Road area due to this development. The insufficient on-site parking provision, we believe, would have a detrimental impact on local residents and other businesses in an already significantly heavy traffic area with very limited parking provision. We believe this will result in an overspilling of parking into the surrounding residential streets. We ask these comments to be noted and considered by the committee.
Okay, thank you for reading that out, Ryan, and Councillor Mathers and Councillor Core. If you're watching, thank you very much for submitting your comments for the committee to consider. Okay, right, Mandip, I think you wanted to give us a verbal update before we go to Glenn, I think.
I was going to give a verbal update, but Richard has done it for me, so that's fine. The verbal update was the new condition for mechanical ventilation, and in response to Councillor Mathers and Councillor Core's comments, I would just argue that, or advocate rather, that a restriction where no deliveries can take place on a site for 5.5 hours of a day seems excessive and unreasonable. So we've already imposed, through discussion last month, restrictions from 7 till 9 and then 3 till 5. Changing the 3 to 5 restriction to 3 to 6:30 is just possibly one step too far in terms of it would extend and elongate the construction process, causing, well, more harm, I guess, to the residents that you're trying to protect. So I wouldn't advocate that that is a change that that I support as it's proposed by Councillor Mathers. I would say, however, the request to ensure that we have enforcement for no HGVs in local roads is something that we would normally police through the construction management plan. It's not a specific criteria, so I am happy for it to be added as a specific criteria, and I've discussed this with Alan, and he's also happy. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So are we saying that's possibly an additional condition, or
added to condition 3?
Added to condition 3. Okay, thank you. I'm sure members will maybe want to just ask a few questions about Councillor Mathers and Councillor Core's input when we get to opening up for the debate. Okay, now members will recall, obviously Councillor Cawthorne, you weren't here at the last meeting, but I think everybody else was. Oh no, Councillor Dott, you weren't here either, was you? Okay, so, okay. We extensively debated this particular application, and that was good. It was a really good debate, and it was good to scrutinise it and good to get it to this place in terms of deferral. The sticking point was around the 90-day stay, and we as a committee wanted some absolute clarification about where we could and couldn't condition that. So we've heard from Richard. But Glenn, did you want to give us your insight into, from a legal perspective, as to what that means for this committee in terms of a 90-day stay for this application?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. As you said, there was extensive debate at the last meeting about whether the council could restrict stays to less than 90 days or less. The applicant very helpfully shared advice from leading King's Council on this issue. I've looked at that, I agree with that advice, and it's summarised in pages 10 and 11 of the report there. The fact that some residents of the hotel, I'll use the term residents loosely, some guests may stay for more than 90 days, does not detract from the fact it's still a hotel. If you look at the features of this place, people do not have individual access to it's not a dwelling, they can't register there to vote. There's limited facilities available to them in the hotel room. They have to enter through a reception area. They have no individual access to where they may be staying. And as the legal implications say there on pages 10 and 11, it's all a question of fact and degree. The use classes order, rightly or wrongly, does not impose any length of stay in a hotel room. So the council has to work with what the use classes order says there. So I agree with that advice there. I don't see any lawful basis upon which the council could restrict the hotel from allowing a guest to stay for more than 90 days. And I'd reiterate also the advice I gave at the last meeting. It's not for this committee to judge the wisdom of a business operating in that way. If that's the model they are choosing, that's the model they are choosing. The fact is, on the information we're given here, officers are satisfied this would be a hotel within the use classes order there. I think the other issue I'd just say, Chairman, because it's arisen from, I'd agree with the advice Mandip gave there about restricting for 5.5 hours a day deliveries to the hotel there. The council would need to have a very clear basis upon which to impose that restriction. And I think a further feature to bear in mind, the further factor to bear in mind, is that there has been one objection from a resident to this application. At the last meeting, there were no objections from residents at all to this. It's a very different situation from some of the applications you've had at other meetings, where residents have come forward and said, our parking is going to be restricted for 12 hours a day here. This is unfair on us. There's been no objection here. So in terms of the council imposing a further restriction today, members will need to be very clear of the basis of which they're imposing that restriction and what benefit that would achieve. Thank you, Chairman.
No, thank you. And as ever, wise words there, Glenn. I think the other point to bear in mind here that came out of Richard's presentation was the additional monitoring bond as well, which has been included as an addition following the debate of this committee last time. So if you remember, we got a lot of conditions added, we got a lot of conditions amended, we got a lot of conditions bolstered, and it really just came down to this 90-day stay element that we've just heard about. So I think we're now at the point where we can now invite members to discuss and debate what we've just heard and ask for clarification from officers. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Firstly, I just want to say a big thank you to officers, also to the applicant for their prompt efforts and flexibility. I think there was talk last time of this potentially not coming back for a couple of months, so to do it in less than 4 weeks is astonishing. As you said, Chairman, we chewed this over an awful lot, and I think it was right that we did. It's a sizable, significant development in the area. The hotel that's there currently, was built less than a decade ago. Residents went through an awful lot of construction impact then. They're now going to go through it again. But I think with the additional conditions, the additional clarity, I think we're in a much better place now. Just picking up on the point, Mandip and Glenn, that you just spoke around Councillor Mather's sort of request for us to note and consider. Obviously, this wasn't here for the first meeting. It's now come through just before the second. I would tend to agree that 5.5 hours of no construction traffic feels unreasonable. My question to you is, what is the standard? So on similar developments in this area and elsewhere around the borough, where do we normally draw the line on what is reasonable and acceptable?
I don't know whether Mandip or Alan want to take that one. Alan, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. We would normally we would prohibit deliveries between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. and then 4 p.m. till 6 p.m. But in locations such as this, where there's a school, we would bring that forwards to 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. No, thank you. Councillor Bennett, does that address your point?
Is it 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. or 3 p.m. to 5 p.m.?
5.
Five.
As it is proposed,
in the
it's 3 till 5, but I think we're just debating whether or not that should be extended. I think we've heard from officers.
Yes.
Why would that be reasonable? And I think that's a question that members have got to satisfy themselves. Is it reasonable or is it not reasonable to do that? Okay.
That was all from
me
for now.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Cawthorne indicating.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'm acutely aware that I'm coming in on the end of this, following much debate at which I was not present, and it may well be the committee has a reasonably settled view around a lot of the things that were asked about. But for my benefit, if I may, I do have a few questions, because I think it's important we scrutinise this properly. We've heard from the officer introducing the report that the client group is, I think I heard him say, business and leisure. And I'm just wondering to what extent in legislation, how rigidly defined that is. Are we very clear what we mean about that, or is it more loosely defined by that? So I suppose that's one question I have. The other one really is, I'm just picking Glenn up on one comment he made. I have enormous respect for Glenn, and I hate to disagree, but I'm going to perhaps challenge a little bit something about what he said. What I think I heard you say, Glenn, and I'm paraphrasing here a little bit, but it's not really for us to question the modus operandi of what's being put forward. You know, it's kind of there, and we take it as it's presented. And yet, I look at the comments from the economic development team. You'd expect them to be really enthusiastic about this. You know, why wouldn't you be? You would think, except they're not. In fact, they've said some pretty challenging things about what's before us this evening in terms of its practicality and how it might work on the site. And my question, I suppose, is to what extent are we at liberty to consider the practicality of the operation that's being put forward here, or is it enough for us simply to say, well, in theory it works, we've got a transport plan, and there you go. I just want a bit of clarity around that. And just by extension, if I may, one final point. I mean, we're hearing about a travel plan that goes with this. Okay, and that's all well and good. I suppose with the monitoring arrangement that's coming with it, we understand. I'm just wondering whether that gives us any meaningful powers in the event of things not going as we are given to understand they will go, i.e. people aren't using these buses and they're all driving en masse and parking in surrounding streets. I'm just interested to know what kind of teeth we've got, if any, with that monitoring arrangement. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that, Councillor Cawthorne. I'm going to try and paraphrase some very valid points that you raised there. So the first point there, Mandy, I'll let you direct either yourself or your team to kind of pick these up, was the definition of a business and leisure. Was the first point. The question of the business model and, you know, what falls under the jurisdiction of this committee, and what weight do we place on the economic development officer's comments, I think is what you're saying there. So maybe Glenn, you might be able to help us out with that one. And then how enforceable is the travel plan? So I think there's sort of three points there. So first one, go for it.
If I can touch on the first point, Councillor Cawthorne. So the applicant team have advocated that this is a hotel for use for business and leisure. We are simply giving planning permission for a hotel. The model that the applicant has is the model that they have put together for funding purposes, but we are giving planning permission purely for a use class, which is a hotel. We're not controlling who can and can't stay there. Was that the question, I guess? Do
you want to...
Yeah, I'm taking it from that it's fairly loosely defined then, in other words. Okay.
Okay. And then the second point that Councillor Cawthorne raised there, which was really around a nudge back, I think, would be the way to, as to how can we define the business model, the modus operandi, I love that expression, of the hotel, and what weight should we as a committee apply to the economic development officers. Are you okay to pick that one up then?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. At the last meeting there was quite a lot of debate about how this could be a hotel if people stayed for extended periods. I think I've addressed that now. And there was also some questions asked about how that would operate in practice. And I think I'd echo the advice that Mandip gave there. We take an application at face value here. They say this is their business model. It's up to the applicant to judge how their business is going to be successful. We may think it is the oddest idea ever, it's going to completely fail. This is a planning committee. You're making a decision based on planning matters, not on commercial matters. If, however, this was a finely balanced application and the economic development team was saying, we're really not sure about this, we don't think this can be delivered, I think that's something that could be taken into account and might even be pivotal. But in a case like this, where there's no significant planning, there's no planning harm that officers are saying has not been addressed through the imposition of conditions, I don't think much weight can be attached to that. I think also in relation to monitoring there, if there is a breach of any of the management plans or the travel plans, that can be a breach of planning. There is enforcement there. Again, as always, it's a question of fact and degree. I think the additional safeguard you've got here is unusually an applicant has volunteered to fund the monitoring costs that were not before the last committee. So 6 monthly reports on who is staying there will soon enable officers to assess whether or not this is still a hotel or whether it's turned into something different. So hopefully that assists. I don't think there's anything else, Chairman.
No, thank you, Glenn. Councillor, did you want to come back on any of those points?
Okay, so just so I'm clear then, so the comments of the economic development team are not really material considerations in this instance then, just to be clear.
I think, Chairman, if this was a marginal application, they would be. Much more weight could be attached to them.
I only say it's marginal because the author is recommending on balance that we approve, which suggests to me it's one that could go either way, that's all. But I'll leave it there if that's okay. Right.
Okay. No, thank you, Councillor Cawthorne. Councillor Garlick, you indicating. Okay, over to you.
Just need clarification, because some councils there have strategies for hotels in the area. Does Hillingdon have any strategy regarding hotel accommodation or they need? And the secondary one, for this specific development, what would be the housing density? Would it be sustainable, or how does it compare to the neighbourhood, immediate neighbourhood?
Okay, so 2 points there. Does Hillingdon have a strategy for its hotels? We have a few of them, I think, especially in the south of the borough. And the second point there was housing density. I think I know the answer to that question, but I think it's good to hear from officers on that. So, Mandy, you or your team want to pick that up?
So in terms of hotel strategies, we have a need to deliver a certain number of hotel rooms, and that is a policy. So there is a London plan and a local policy for the delivery of hotel rooms. So this application and its proposals are meeting some of that proposed need within the borough. So the majority of it is around Heathrow, but there is a requirement for other transport nodes and other sustainable locations to also deliver hotels. So this is in accordance with those policies. When you talk about strategies, I guess the local plan is a strategy, and so yes, it is conforming with the requirements of those policies. This is not a residential development when we look at density, and for that reason there isn't a density applied or calculated. So because it's a hotel, density is not relevant in this planning application. I know you're not going to like that answer.
Obviously people will be staying there for longer, so they will be occupying as if they will be occupying short let in the house.
Yeah, I think what officers are saying is there's a certain set criteria for residential dwellings. This is not a residential dwelling, as we've just heard. It is a hotel, and we've heard all the legal advice in terms of what is a hotel and what isn't a hotel. So on this occasion, we've got very clear advice that this is considered to be a hotel with additional monitoring in place to keep a very, very close eye on it going forward. So if you wanted to come back on that and ask officers any follow-ups on that, I'm more than happy to, if you wanted to do that. Okay? No? Okay. Councillor Davis, followed by Councillor Gill.
Thank you, Chairman. So as always, I have a few questions. First question I would ask about fire access on the building and escape routes. Am I right in thinking that because this is over 30 metres, it now requires an additional escape route? Or have I got that wrong?
Mandy, do you want to come back on that?
That's simply for residential development, so not hotels. It wouldn't apply.
And it doesn't count on length of stay or... Sorry, through you, Chairman. Yeah, so it doesn't count on length of stay or anything, so it wouldn't change the use, no?
No, so it's only for C3 developments are they required to provide 2 calls.
Perfect.
And this is at C1.
Yeah, no, perfect. I have a couple more questions,
if
I
you'd
may.
like to come back, Councillor Davis, I'm happy to indulge you.
Construction management plan. Thank you for wheel washing, of course, as always. Are we able to condition the amount of decibels on site? So I see we have a noise plan. I was wondering, because of the distance away from the properties opposite, would we be able to put a set amount of decibels? So I've seen in other plans that there was, I think it's 16 decibels during a certain amount of time, and then can go up to 30. So I'd wonder if we can condition that.
And I think what we're saying then is you're saying then is that part of the construction management plan?
Yeah. Is that part of it?
Can we add to the construction management plan something which talks to noise?
Yeah.
And
so
and
I can see it has a condition in there for noise, but there's no set level. So I'd be concerned if there was someone with a Kango on a Saturday morning at 8 o'clock, decibels may be louder because there's less cars, less traffic, less sound buffering.
I have to be honest, so you're referring to point 11 in the criteria?
Yeah.
I do not know what the limits are, but we obviously are working to the control of noise at work regulations under that part, and I would hope it will be compliant. I wouldn't want to set something that is not in accordance with whatever they are in those regulations of 2005. So as long as they are controlled, I think is as much as I can say. I wouldn't want to set an arbitrary limit that I don't know in detail.
Okay. Chairman, may I come back?
Would you be happy to leave the regulations to do their work, or would you...
I'd be happy to delegate, providing there was a set level, because I would just worry a residents, that's all. We are, within boundaries and the work that's going to be taking place, that's extremely close. So I would have concerns over that.
Okay. We'll make a note of that.
I have one more question.
I am going to indulge. I'm sure there's other members that want to contribute, but I'm going to indulge you, and then straight to Councillor Gill because he's itching to get in.
This one is different, but I'm going to ask it. Is there a way we can restrict that the rental properties can't become a postal address or have mail delivered?
I'm just to my right there. I had a very firm yes in my ear, so I'm assuming that there is a way we can do that. And how would we satisfy Councillor Davis on that one?
The hotel management strategy that's been drafted does not allow assured tenancies and postal. There are no postal addresses given to these rooms, so they will not therefore benefit from any form of those residential advantages.
So that will allow them not to... Sorry, Chairman, for you.
Please do.
So that will allow them not to have it as a postal address at all. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
That's safeguarded for you in the hotel management strategy. Okay. Thank you. Right, we will now move across the room to Councillor Gill. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a couple from me. I think we're looking at the shuttle bus plan. Reading it, it says it's going to go from Southwood to the hotel or to Hayes in between those. Does it not make sense just to pick one of the stations because they're linked anyway with each other? So it's just finding the optimal route to the nearest station. Because I know on a bad day, a tortoise can probably get to Southwood station quicker than the shuttle bus. And even Hayes sometimes can be inaccessible down Cold Harbour Lane. So I'm just trying to think, is it not more optimal to pick one of them and go via that route?
Okay, Mandip or Alan, want to pick up anything on that? I'm not sure the committee has a jurisdiction to dictate where the shuttles can can operate, but we can certainly ask the question. Alan?
Thank you very much, Chairman. My preference for the minibus is for it to be demand responsive and flexible, and I think it would operate according to traffic conditions on that day to get the guests from Hayes and Harlington, Southall, Elizabeth Line stations to the hotel. But I would also very much wish that it's got the flexibility to pick people up in Uxbridge or Ruislip as needs be. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Just a second question.
Yeah, if you wanted to follow that up.
Yeah, just a totally different question. So it's to do with the delivery hours. I was just cycling past there at just before 6 o'clock, and it was gridlocked down the Uxbridge Road, so and that's constantly like that. So I'm kind of inclined to think about if we could extend those hours as well, just based on the norm we have for other similar projects in the borough.
Okay. I think we heard the sort of advice, the legal advice, and we also heard from the highways advice as well that a 6:30 restriction would probably limit and restrict this is what we heard, is limit and restrict the construction to the point where it would extend it. So when you're looking at a temporary period for the construction, you're probably looking to elongate that a bit further. We've also got to be mindful, I think, and I'm happy for officers to chip in here, is that we've got several developments in the vicinity that I don't think we've restricted as anywhere near, or proposing to restrict anywhere near. We've got a data centre, we've got a hotel consented next door, and a storage site I think we determined a couple of months ago across the road as well. So I'm happy for members to chip in on that. I know we've heard from Councillor Bennett on that, but I'm taking advice from our highways experts and from our legal team as to what is reasonable and what is not. We've already conditioned it, extended conditions, being very mindful that there's a school down the road. So I don't know if any officers want to sort of pitch in and talk to that a little bit more.
I would just say that I feel that extending it to 6 would be unreasonable. So Alan has already mentioned that 4 to 6 is a typical exclusion time for other developments throughout the borough, and we have chosen to push it to facilitate and accommodate the schools at the bottom of Springfield Road. So for that reason, I'd rather change them than extend them for the benefit of the schools.
Do you want to come back on any of that?
Yeah, it's just on that. I think the school is just an added factor in there, because if you ever go there during the school time, there's no way you can do any deliveries around that time anyway. But then you've got the added factor of the school, and I think it's a very prime location in terms of where it is on Uxbridge Road, and then you've got this industrial unit down Springfield Road. I think there's a gym down there, there's the goal centre. So there's quite a lot going on around that area, so it's quite unique in that sense, I think.
Any other members with any other points on that? Right, so we've got Councillor. We'll come back to that point, I think, because it's obviously something you want to explore further. So, Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Chairman. My comment wasn't on what Councillor Gill said, although maybe we should come back to that. I was actually going to propose that we move officer's recommendation with all of the conditions that we kind of agreed on last time and spoken about today. We debated and discussed this in detail probably for about 90 minutes at the last meeting, which was the right thing to do. We've deferred. We've got a lot more clarity. We've now discussed this for another hour. If I think back to some of the applications we've had over the past year, we've approved a hospital in less time than we have this. And I think for all the right reasons, we've really dug into the detail and the meat of this. But I think we have probably gone as far as we can go and got all of the information that we need.
Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Councillor Davis, did you want to come back?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Do we have, it most probably is in the report, but I can't see it. So, do we have hours of work on the site? Is there a set hours of work? So, what I'm looking at is more like a finish time during the day. So,
it's generally left to considerate construction hours, so that there's an industry standard. We don't normally duplicate that requirement and put it down as a condition. If you would prefer, it could be added.
My thinking behind it is, if we were to condition the site that majority of workers had to be off the site by 6 o'clock in the evening, that could possibly mitigate the delivery issue, because it'd be very rare that you're going to have the deliveries after 5 o'clock when work is starting to wind down. If it's not something that we have the powers to do, then I completely understand, but...
I'm just going to search what those typical hours are, so bear with me, and then
Thank
I can
you.
tell you once we've possibly gone back to the hours.
I think when we look at construction hours, it's normally 8, sometimes 7 till 6,
Yeah.
and then it's sort of 8 till 1 on Saturday, nothing on Sundays or bank holidays. I know, Councillor Gill, you're making a good point on extending the hours, but I think we've already got an extension, a limitation. Now, I would certainly not be in favour of extending the hours to 6:30, because I think that would too much restrict the applicant and it is only a temporary basis as well. It is only a whilst the construction's going on. So I'll be interested to hear from Councillor Dott, who's just indicated.
Thank you, Chairman. Hotel management strategy, it covers most aspect of this application, like what condition can be imposed in terms of no short holder tenancy or no parking permit for the future occupiers, and the no voting right or council tax purposes, they cannot use the premises. So mostly everything is covered, so I'm happy to second. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard, did you
we
want
could
to
certainly
comment
add an informative advising the applicant of our standard working hours guidance, so
Okay.
we could certainly do that.
there? Yeah, we can add an informative just to give a bit of clarity and guidance as to on that. But again, I know Councillor Gill's made the point, but I think I've got the legal advice ringing in my ears as well, that I'm not going to ignore on this occasion. So, okay, right. Any more members wishing to indicate? Councillor Cawthorne.
Thank you. No more questions, just a few comments really. Obviously I've come in on the back of this. There's a lot about this I don't like, I'll be frank. There are all kinds of issues with policy conflicts, all kinds of challenges around issues which we would not ideally want, and we're used to situations where we swallow a certain number of policy conflicts with wider benefit. Personally, I think it's questionable. However, I do accept that actually the risk of losing an appeal with our ability to condition as we have would not be an optimum outcome for us, and offers a recommended approval only on balance, which I think tells its own story. Therefore, I will also support the officer recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cawthorne. Okay, I'm not seeing any other members wishing to indicate. We are moved. We are seconded. Can I have a show of hand, please, for this application? So I've got 6 in favour. All those against? And we've got 1 against. So I can confirm that's not unanimous, but it is carried through this evening. Agenda item 6 is approved. Thank you very much, everybody, for, again, what is an excellent debate. So, we'll just let everybody draw breath for a moment, and we'll move on to agenda item 7. Whilst we sort out our technical difficulties with the screens, we'll move on to agenda item 7, which is the canteen building at the Nestle factory. Okay, so it says Richard, but I know you're not a Richard. You're you're Michael. So Michael, are you gonna just confuses me? That's all. It's my age. So you're going to take us through this one. So over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. So before I start, officers would like to draw members' attention to the addendum, which includes clarification on the proposed healthcare delivery plan and affordable housing obligations, and the addition of a condition for the retention, or in relation to the retention of the canteen building facades. So item 7 relates to the former Nestle factory canteen building, located on the Nestles Avenue in Hayes. The site is outlined in red on the screen there, and forms the central southern section of the overall former Nestle factory residential redevelopment site, which is outlined in blue. The site is located 500 metres to the southeast of Hayes town centre, bounded to the north by the Great Western Railway and Grand Union Canal, and bounded to the south by Nestles Avenue. This is the constraints plan. The former Nestle canteen building is a locally listed building and forms part of the Botwell and Nestles Conservation Area. The site also forms part of the Hillingdon Air Quality Management Area and Hayes Air Quality Focus Area. So the site is subject to policy SA5 of the Hillingdon Local Plan Part 2, which states, as on the screen there, the council will support proposals that provide appropriate community infrastructure to support the development in the allocated sites, and this includes health, children's services, community and sport and recreation facilities. So here is a bird's eye view of the site, dated back in 2019, prior to a lot of development that's already gone on site. And here are some photographs from street level. So this is the southern elevation of the canteen building facing onto Nestles Avenue. This is the southern elevation again from further afield, taken next to the temporary sales suite. This is the eastern elevation fronting onto Wallace Gardens. The temporary sales suite is outlined in red. Canteen building is behind and is outlined in green, and the colonnade structure is outlined in yellow. So this is a close-up of the eastern elevation and the colonnade structure above. This is a view from Nestles Avenue adjoining Wallace Walk. This is the western elevation fronting onto the approved Canal Street. This is the western elevation from further afield, with the Truscon building in the background. This is the northern elevation of the canteen building taken from the Truscon building. And this is the inside of the canteen building shown as being used for storage. So, under the planning permission for the canteen building was originally approved in 1949, and the building was built in 1954. The original canteen building had a distinctive facade with large windows and green tiles. In 1958, the canteen building was used as a central community hub, surrounded by the factory garden. And in 1980, the canteen was reused for industrial or warehouse purposes. Under the original planning permission dated 2018, the canteen building was permitted to be retained, apart from the shower block and canopy structures which have been removed. It was retained for flexible use, including retail, restaurant, cafe, drinking establishment, offices, non-residential institution or assembly and leisure purposes. Residential block H was proposed to comprise 6 stories with 18 units, including 8 one-bed, 2-person units and 10 3-bed, 5-person units. Block H also included a ground floor commercial unit with the same flexible use as the canteen building. Since the original 2018 permission in 2021, a drop-in planning application was granted permission and included changes to the canteen building on Block H. The same flexible use for the canteen building was granted, but included B8 storage and distribution use. Block H was approved as 6 stories again, but comprised 35 affordable discount market sales studio units. The ground floor commercial unit again had permission for flexible uses. So here are some of the approved floor plans on the 2021 drop-in permission. Again, this permission retained the canteen building in its existing form and included the construction of Block H, off-centre to the top right corner of each plan, in between the canteen building and the colonnade structure. So here are some of the approved elevations. You've got the approved north elevation on the left and the approved south elevation on the right. And you've got the approved east elevation at the top and the approved west elevation at the bottom. So since the approval of the schemes on this site dating back to June 2018, developers have been unsuccessful in finding an occupant for the building in its current form, which could operate in accordance with the constraints of the permissions granted. They have now engaged with the NHS over the provision of a healthcare facility and have designed the current application in accordance with their requirements. This application therefore seeks full planning permission for the partial demolition and redevelopment of the former canteen building to provide a new healthcare facility, nursery, reconfigured residential Block H with a commercial unit at ground floor, including all the associated landscaping, access, car parking and other works. Officers would highlight that the proposal has been revised through the application process from an application to fully demolish the canteen building to a proposal for partial demolition of the building, including retention of the southern facade and partial retention of the western facade. So this is the proposed site plan with the canteen building and Block H outlined in red. And this is the ground floor demolition plan. As per the application description, the canteen building is proposed to be partially demolished. The shower block and canopy structure are hatched in black and have already been demolished in accordance with the consent granted under the original permission. The area of the building hatched in green is proposed to be demolished earlier in the build programme to allow for the construction of Block H, and the area hatched in red is proposed to be demolished later in the build programme to facilitate the construction of the healthcare facility and nursery. The facades are coloured in purple and are to be retained. This is the first floor demolition plan and replicates the same phasing proposal of demolition at ground floor level. This is the north and east elevations demolition plans, with generally little to remain, but you do have an element of the western facade at the top there, marked in purple, to be retained. And more significantly, this shows the retention of the southern facade at the top and partial retention of the western facades at the bottom. So moving on to the actual proposal, this is the proposed ground floor plan with the healthcare facility highlighted in blue, the nursery highlighted in purple at the bottom, the Block H commercial unit highlighted in orange at the top, and the lobby, bin store and cycle store of the residential block highlighted in green, top left. This shows the proposed first floor. The healthcare facility would utilise the entirety of the first floor of the rebuilt canteen building. The residential units also start at the first floor level of Block H. So this shows the proposed second to fourth floor plans of the residential block. And zoomed in, this is the typical arrangement for the 37 proposed affordable discount market sale units. This is the proposed fifth floor plan of the residential block. And this shows the 4 proposed private sale units to be located at the 5th floor level, including 1 discount market sale unit in the middle, alongside 2 communal roof terraces on either side. A condition is proposed to ensure that the private sale flats are occupied as studios and not substandard units of a larger occupancy. This is the proposed roof plan. It includes green roofs on both the canteen building and the residential block H, as well as PV panels on both blocks again. So here are the proposed elevations. You've got the proposed south elevation of the canteen building and block H at the top of the screen, and you've got the proposed northern elevations of the canteen building and block H at the bottom of the screen there. And again, you've got the proposed east elevation at the top and the proposed western elevation at the bottom. So as shown by the plans, the proposed replacement canteen building has been designed to closely match the elevational design of the former canteen building. This includes white rendered elevations, crystal windows, green tiled window separations, and the recreation of the colonnade to face Wallace Gardens on the eastern side of the building. So some summary slides. So the proposed facility is supported by the NHS healthcare strategy at both national and local level. The facility is needed to fulfil the established objectives, including improving access to and quality of GP facilities. The development will serve the growing Hayes population and provide needed capacity to enable the improved delivery of primary care services. The development will result in a net increase in healthcare provisions. The NHS are proposed to be delivered from the premises for the duration of at least the proposed 25-year lease. And the NHS have been independently consulted as part of the application process, and they have confirmed that they are committed to the scheme and that they have been working closely with the developer. If recommended for approval, a healthcare facility delivery plan obligation is proposed to be secured by legal agreement, and this would achieve a number of things. But number one, it would prevent demolition until the owner has entered into an agreement for lease or sale with a healthcare investor. Prevent occupation of the healthcare facility until the lease has been completed with an NHS organisation or an NHS approved organisation. And number three, ensure that development is fit for purpose to avoid any barriers to the occupation of the facility by the NHS organisation or NHS approved organisation. Moving on to affordable housing, so the residential block would deliver 41 one-bedroom units. This is being an uplift of 6 units when compared to the 2021 planning permission for the site, which provided 35 one-bedroom units. The scheme would increase the number of units site-wide from 1,473 to 1,479. 37 of the units are proposed as affordable discount market sale units, and 4 units are proposed as private sale units. This equates to 90% affordable housing when measured by habitable room for the canteen building development specifically, and again that equates to around 40% for the wider Nestle redevelopment sites. If recommended for approval, the affordable housing obligation would secure the site by provision of affordable housing, including an early stage review. It would also ensure that discount market sale units meet the relevant affordability criteria for intermediate ownership, and that the discount is appropriately passed on to future eligible buyers in perpetuity. The last slide. The proposed scheme would retain the southern facade and parts of the western facade. The partial demolition of the locally listed canteen building in the conservation area would result in less than substantial harm, requiring that the harm is weighed against the public benefits of the scheme. The scheme would deliver a number of public benefits, including the delivery of a needed healthcare facility, which would be secured by legal agreement, delivery of a nursery, the delivery of affordable housing, bringing the vacant site back into use, a design which would match the elevational design of the canteen building, and the delivery of economic and employment benefits. So the public benefits are considered to outweigh the less than substantial harm posed to the heritage asset. And to conclude, for the reasons set out within the main body of the committee report, the proposal is considered to accord with the development plan. subject to planning conditions and a deed of variation to the previously completed legal agreement for the Nestle redevelopment site. The application is recommended for approval. Pass back to you, Chairman.
Okay. Michael, thank you very much for taking us through that. There was a lot to get through there. I'm sure members have done well to absorb a lot of that information. There are no speaking rights for this application, no petition, but Manage just reminded me that there is an extensive addendum, which I think that Michael has already referred to a couple of times, so there's one there to be mindful of. But I've already had a couple of members indicate they want to speak, so I think we can go straight to the debate. So we'll start with Councillor Cawthorne.
Thank you very much. I mean, this is a welcome application, and it takes me back to my days, towards the end of my days in Cabinet, when this was first mooted, the notion of using this building for the healthcare. So it's great to see here this evening. Well, I've got a couple of questions about it. I mean, I welcome the planning obligation relating to an NHS organisation signing up to this, but we've had, as the report states, we've had a lot of pain in the past with GPs not, for whatever reason, going along with it. And I just wonder, whilst it may take us slightly beyond our remit as a committee, I wonder whether we've got any more comfort this time round that the ICB is actually working hand in hand with the GPs and the Fed about whatever concerns they might have had in the past, so that we don't go through that pain again. So that's one question. The other thing I picked up from the report, and I can't find exactly where it was, but I think there was some concerns, I think, in the conservation section about the need, or otherwise, to demonstrate that it's not possible or feasible to repurpose the existing building without any demolition whatsoever. Is there a requirement? A, is there a requirement to demonstrate it, and B, have we in the report? Because I didn't pick it up. Those two to begin with, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Cawthorne. Pandit, do you want to pick up those 2 points?
Yes, so we have had extensive dialogue ourselves as the planning team with the ICB, or I'll refer to them as the NHS because not everyone knows that they've changed their name. And yes, they are looking forward to utilising the space that's provided. So the background to the need is that the existing facility, HESA, which is located within Hayes Town Centre, is due to have its lease terminated shortly. It has facilities at ground and first floor level. The ground floor, GPs will be moving to the old vinyl factory, so that is a health facility that we secured at this committee a few years ago now, which is under construction. The upper floor is earmarked to move into this facility here. Now, this is much bigger than the upper floor of HESA, so the canteen will be providing much more than just the GP facilities. It will have a few outpatient clinics, I guess, coming from either Mount Vernon and or Hillingdon Hospital. So we feel we have engaged as much as we can. Now, I understand that the applicant team, so Barrett's, have also joined the ICB or the NHS at various conversations in the last year to understand what the operational needs are, so therefore the amount of floor area, the number of rooms that were required, and that feeds into the second comment that you made about whether the full demolition was actually necessary. So we have been through months, or I think the applicant team might say years, of conversations about whether we could repurpose the canteen building as it stands, as is, and it's just not possible to meet the NHS's requirements to deliver them a facility that they can get, I guess, insurance on or is fit for purpose, and also introduce the second floor within the main canteen, which is just one level. So, yes, we have been through extensive dialogue, and I can't promise that the NHS will be on board, but they have been in dialogue in order to facilitate delivery with the applicant team.
Councillor Cawthorne, did you want to come back on?
Let's keep our fingers crossed. I've had mixed experiences of this over the years. Let's be hopeful, is all I will say. Thank you.
Yeah. And there's a front and centre head of term as well, which should give members some safeguard on that. So I've got Councillor Bennett, followed by Councillor Dott.
Thank you, Chairman. I didn't have any questions, actually. Mine was just to say that I thought this was a really good application. It's never pleasing to see history die out and heritage assets go, but I really like the fusion of, keeping the facade of the past, building it into the present. The nursery, the medical centre, I think are brilliant. I live on a new build development where funding was secured for a medical practice that the NHS chose not to build. I think the fact that we've got the legal agreement that is agreed before we commence demolition, I think is brilliant. I don't want to be premature and jump ahead of my peers, so in case anyone else has any questions.
I think you like the scheme. I think was what you said there. So that's good. Councillor Dott.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a quick question. According to a building control officer's report, part of the facade is suffering from Regent Street disease. I just wanted to know which side of facade will be retained and which side will be replaced.
Okay. Is that one for Michael?
Yeah.
Yep.
So on the plan there, you can see in purple, everything that's marked in or coloured in purple there is to be retained. So at the top you've got the southern elevation which faces onto Nestles Avenue. That's the primary elevation, probably the more striking one, and significant to retain that for heritage reasons. And on the western side you've also got partial retention. Unfortunately not all of that can be retained, partly due to structural reasons, because I think there's an undercroft structure to the right of the bottom demolition plan there that you can't prop up to retain the first floor, if that makes sense. And the other end of it is required to be demolished to facilitate the development of the residential block. But like I say, the retention of what is proposed there is considered sufficient to reduce the level of harm to an acceptable degree, in officer opinion.
Okay. Did you have any follow-up on that? No? Okay. I've got Councillor Cawthorne followed by Councillor Davis.
Just a small point, although maybe it's not actually. I'm just thinking about the heritage of the building, and obviously the retention of the facade is obviously an important way of doing that, of course, but I just wonder whether there's anything else planned or anything else that we might perhaps request in the course of this by way of some means of commemorating the building's past history, whether it's a plaque or a sign or something like that. That may already be planned, or that's something we can pick up at some stage. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any thoughts on that?
There is a plaque that was removed from site from the main Truscon building, which I believe has been reinstated or is required to be reinstated. So there is nothing, I believe, such as a plaque on this existing building that would be reinstated or retained.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chairman. A couple of questions, if I may. The first one's just relating to the residents' comments. Can you just show me the plan to see how far away, what sort of view there would be from the building over the residents' properties? So, am I right in thinking that the front of the property will be covered by trees and shouldn't have a visible overlook?
That's correct. So at the site frontage there is a line of trees alongside, at the bottom of the plan says Nestles Avenue. The houses on the existing property are to the south, and there is a row of trees before you actually get to the canteen building itself.
If I may, Chairman. Are we able to condition that the wind, just to help with the residents, I know there was only a few comments, but are we able to put that the windows are frosted at the front? Are we able to condition that?
Is that something?
I have to be honest, I don't know, because the NHS obviously have certain requirements. These would be windows that would be used for GP surgeries at the upper floor level, so I don't know whether it's necessary.
Just a passing comment.
Okay.
And if I may?
Go for it, on a roll.
After that, it's a shame to see a historic building go, but I'd be happy to go with officer's recommendation on this.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Davis. I'm not seeing anybody indicate other than Councillor Bennett, but I think Councillor Gill, he caught my eye there. So we'll go with Councillor Bennett first, and then go to Councillor Gill.
I was going to second officer's recommendation, but I don't want to jump in ahead of Councillor Gill if he's got a question.
Okay, we'll go to Councillor Gill. Do you want to third it?
Councillor Bennett took the words out of my mouth.
I don't think we can third these things, can we? But okay, I'm not seeing any other members indicate, but we are moved and we are seconded. Again, a good debate, everybody. Thank you very much. We've got no amendments to what's been presented in front of us. So can I have a show of hands for officer's recommendation, please? So that's unanimous, 7 out of 7. I can confirm agenda item 7 this evening is approved. Thank you very much. Okay. Right, again, we'll draw breath for a couple of moments and we'll turn the page onto agenda item 8 this evening. And we'll just let our guests depart before we go into the next one. Okay, we will move on to agenda item 8, which is the Comag site, Tavistock Road in Useley. Is this you, Chris?
It is, yes.
We're getting good for these nameplates, aren't we?
Yeah,
not to confuse me. So over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Chairman. Before I get started on the presentation, I just want to draw members' attention to the addendum, where there is a correction to the affordable housing head of term, which is point 9 in the heads of term. Item 8 relates to the redevelopment of the former Comag site on Tavistock Road, West Drayton. The application site is located on the north side of Tavistock Road and forms part of site allocation SA38, which allocates the site for residential redevelopment in 3 phases, referred to in the policy as sites A, B and C. I'll just skip to the... Okay, so here you'll see the site allocation. Site A is the former Padcroft work site, which has been redeveloped and is now occupied. The application site forms Site B, which is just to the left-hand side of the image you see on screen. And Site C is referred to as the Tavistock work site, which was recently granted permission for the construction of a residential building comprising of 36 units at Appeal. Just take you back to the constraints plan. The site is located within Useley and West Drayton Town Centre boundary. However, it is not designated as a primary shopping area. The site is situated amongst an established residential area, including terraced properties on Winnick Road and residential apartments on Bentinck Road and the High Street. The site previously accommodated a part 2-storey and part 3-storey warehouse building with a use class of B8 and ancillary offices. The site was vacated in 2017. Surrounding the site was an area of hard standing which accommodated up to 80 vehicles. The development proposes the construction of a new block of up to 7 stories in height and comprising of 105 units, and also community use space at ground floor level, 50 car parking spaces and a podium to provide communal amenity space. It should be noted that the site has been subject to planning consent for the redevelopment of the site to provide a new building of a very similar scale and design comprising of 104 units and a community space area as well as a basement level car park. However, this consent expired on the 27th of the 4th, 2021. I'll just take you through the plan. So here you'll see the ground floor plan. The building wraps around the entire kind of front with Tavistock Road and Winnock Road, and you'll see the ground level car park just to the rear of the residential units. Here you have the first floor plan and an image of the, well, you can see the podium level landscaping there. That'll be that's included as part of the communal amenity space. Second floor plan, third floor plan. You've got the fourth floor plan. You see a small green roof on the left-hand side, which is just above the corner feature. Fifth floor plan, sixth floor plan, and then seventh floor plan, which is your roof plan. Further roof plan again. Here are the elevations A, B and C. So the taller element which you see on the right hand side actually will abut the Tavistock Works site, which is now recently got consent for a development which is very similar in terms of its height. You've got some side elevations, just some sections. Here you see the internal arrangements of the M43 flat types, which are the 1 bed and 2 person. Here are the M43 flat types, 2 bed 3 person. The same for 2 bed 4 person. Here we have a ground floor plan, which is the planting plan. You'll see planting which is placed along pretty much the entire frontage to create some form of defensible space, which was something that we didn't manage to secure within the appeal scheme next door. You've got the planting plan indicating the planting on the first floor podium. The same at rooftop level. You've got a hardscape plan at rooftop level. Hardscape plan for the first floor podium deck. The fire safety strategy plan, which indicates where fire vehicle could gain access. The scheme does provide some play space provision, and that is indicated on this plan here. And then we've got an alternative parking layout, which, as per all major applications, the initial DA spaces will be 3% compliant. The applicant here shows a 7% and 10% policy compliant level, which would be based on demand. Here you just see some images of the previously approved scheme. So you'll note that the scale of the development is very similar to what is being proposed here. And here is just a ground floor layout and a first floor layout, which again shows that the design of the development is pretty much mirrored in this application. Here you have a bird's eye view of the site itself. This photo is taken from Tavistock Road, but it's almost at the entrance of the site next door. So what you see behind you is site A. Obviously, the site which we're looking at now is site B, and then the site next door, which is due to be, it's been approved at appeal and no doubt will come under construction shortly, is site C. This is just an image taken slightly to the right, which again, those vehicles that you see in that image actually are located within the Tavistock Works site. You've got site A, which is Padcroft Works in the distance. That block is the nearest residential block, which abuts the southern boundary of Tavistock Works. You can see the existing Tavistock Work buildings to the right hand side there, and again you've got that vehicle yard to the left. A similar view across the site. This is taken from the edge of Winnock Road, looking further along Tavistock Works. You can see the rear elevation of Padcroft Works just in the distance. This is actually taken on Winnock Road itself, and again Padcroft Works there just in the distance. And here's just an image really of the corner of the site, which includes those 2-storey terrace dwellings on Winnock Road. That's a view looking towards the site. The site's on the left, just of Winnock Road itself. In terms of the principle of development, this is established through the scheme's accordance with the details of the site allocation and also the expired consent. Similarly, it is reasonable to consider that within reason, the expired consent would have set the design parameters for any future development in terms of its scale, bulk and massing. The proposal does not extend beyond these parameters, which were set by the previous consent, and it is considered to integrate well within the existing context and future development of the neighbouring site at Tavistock Works. The development would provide adequate levels of living accommodation in terms of the unit sizes, design and light levels. In terms of the amenity space, the application would provide London Plan compliant levels of private amenity space, with further communal amenity space provided at both rooftop and by the podium levels, which integrates with the design of both sites A and C. There would be no adverse harm to the amenities of adjoining occupiers. The proposal would not result in an unacceptable loss of light or outlook, nor would there be any unacceptable impact resulting from the loss of privacy or overlooking. Whilst there is a shortfall in the provision of family-sized units of just about 5%, the 15% proposed does present an increase upon the initial proposal. Furthermore, it is above the 12.5%, which was considered acceptable by the appeal inspector, who chose to approve the application for the neighbouring site at Tavistock Works. Notwithstanding the shortfall, the LPA and applicant have worked extremely hard throughout the application process to negotiate the delivery of on-site affordable housing. Through the submission and assessment of an FEA, the LPA and applicant have agreed an offer of 23% with a 10-year split of 61% London affordable rent and 39% shared ownership. Whilst not strictly in accordance with the policy requirements, the agreed FEA has been robustly tested, and the applicant has agreed to both an early and late stage review, which would capture any additional surplus. The development would provide adequate levels of living accommodation in terms of the unit size, the design and light levels as explained. Whilst the comments in response to the public consultation relating to the perceived lack of parking provision are noted, the proposal provides an appropriate level of car parking in accordance with London Plan standards, and it taking into consideration the site's sustainable travel options. Traffic modelling indicates an acceptable impact on the surrounding highway network, and a number of enhancements are secured by a contribution within the Section 106 legal agreement. Further contributions towards open space, air quality, health, carbon offset and employment have also been agreed and secured within the Section 106. In summary, overall, the proposed development has been assessed as providing a high quality redevelopment scheme which contributes positively towards the regeneration of this part of the town centre. The proposal includes a dedicated community facility providing for an active street frontage. Whilst there is a shortfall in family-sized units, this is outweighed by the provision of affordable housing and the delivery of a scheme which accords to the site allocation. No objections have been raised by internal consultees, therefore the application is recommended for approval, subject to conditions and the signing of the aforementioned legal agreement. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you for taking us through that, Chris. Again, there's no petition item this evening, so we can go straight to the debate. So I've got Councillor Bennett and Councillor Cawthorne. So Councillor Bennett, if you want to commence the debate.
Thank you, Chairman. So I did have a question. I'm not really sure whether we can do anything about it, but I like the development, particularly where in this area where there is a lot of development that's taken place. I think it's a shame that previous planning permission was granted for a similar scheme, and 5 and a bit years on, nothing's happened, but pleasing that things are in the works. My question was more around the construction debris, dust. If you look at the pictures of the neighbouring apartment buildings, they've got incredibly large balconies very, very close to the construction site. Is there something we condition or can condition around screening? I live on a new build development that a decade on is still being built, and the dust really, really travels, and I'm nowhere near as close proximity to what these residents would be. If not some sort of screening, is there anything that kind of can be done to shield them?
Okay, I think what the construction management plan would normally have something around dust suppression, and Councillor Davis's favourite, wheel washing. So I'm sure if is that included in there? Do you want to pick that up, Bandit?
It is. So condition 7 does look at controlling dust as well as noise, and hopefully that's a sufficient safeguard. I appreciate that it's very close proximity, but I assume through dampening down, perhaps the applicant might engage with local residents through the construction management plan. There's obviously complaint processes, and engage with the adjoining management company to possibly offer cleaning, but I'm not going to go that far as to impose that. I think that's unreasonable, but we do have provision to try and control the dust within the application site itself.
It's a good point, because it was very front and centre in a development not too far from here a year or so ago, Rainbow Industrial Estate. You might remember that. So my memory's not too bad, but I can remember that we did something about making sure that dust suppression was dealt with as part of that. So I think we just need to make sure that in the construction management plan we make sure that happens. Is that point?
Yeah, part of the condition does actually require the submission of a DMP, so I think it says here the development hereby approved shall be implemented in accordance with the approved DLP, CLP and DMP and CMP. So the DMP would be dust management plan, so we will have sight of that. So if there is something that can be done, it can be negotiated during the condition discharge.
Thank you. Okay. Just through you, Chairman, do you know when those apartment buildings in the picture were constructed? When did people move in? I'm just wondering whether, if they became residents after the previous planning application was granted permission in 2018, would they therefore have moved in on the understanding that there was going to be some degree of construction anyway, and actually, as much as you would still want to mitigate any dust and any impact, it kind of would have been known at the time?
Yeah. Having worked on the Tavistock Works appeal and visited residents on that site, and actually entering into some of the properties, speaking to residents throughout the appeal process, people buying properties within that section of the site knew that they were purchasing a property that was within a site which was under construction, similar to the Nestle development, similar to the development you would have bought in as well. So yeah, I mean, they are aware. The Tavistock Works development was probably a little bit more controversial in terms of the amount of public objection that we received, but yes, they are fully aware, and as would anybody buying a property, you know, depending on whether Tavistock Works is constructed earlier than this development, they would be notified that, you know, they are buying a property within a site that's being redeveloped. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Bennett. Councillor Cawthorne.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, clearly we haven't got a lot of room to manoeuvre here, given the previous planning consent. However, I've got a couple of questions. Really, firstly around the affordable bit, because I'm reading what's on page 176, and I must admit, maybe it's just me, but I'm struggling to follow it a little bit. I can see that there would normally be an expectation of 50% on site. We go on to say eventually, I think, that we've accepted 23% habitable room offer. So I suppose my first question is, we gauge affordability by habitable rooms rather than units. So just to be clear on that, because there's reference later on to the financial viability assessment to assure the appropriate level can be secured. Does that mean we may end up with less potentially, or can we be certain that we're getting at least what it says in this report? And then away from affordable housing, just on the community use, interest in the dedicated community facility. I note there are objections from some consultees about that and what that would bring. How much do we know about that at the moment? Is that still to be determined post-consent, if we are minded to consent this evening? Can we hear a little bit about that, please? Thank you.
Okay, so 3 points there, just a bit of clarification on the affordable housing piece. The financial viability assessment, the review mechanism, and what might that do? I mean, quite often they've come back and they've increased, which is always nice. And just a little bit of clarification on what we know about the community facility.
Yeah, so just to give you some background, we've worked extensively over the last couple of months to try and come to an agreement with the applicant over what the appropriate affordable provision would be. We've reviewed the FEA quite robustly, and to answer the question the baseline would be 23%. So that would be the bare minimum. What the review mechanism does is it basically says, well, if there is a surplus which is identified throughout the building process, then that surplus would then be assessed, and we would then take a cash in lieu figure to which would be in accordance with whatever figure comes out of the review mechanism. So it would be a cash in lieu figure rather than any additional units. But 23% would be the baseline of what we would achieve on this site. Just in terms of, can I move on to the next one?
Go for it.
Community centre.
You can pick that one up.
Yeah, the community centre. It was included as part of the initial consent, and I believe we were aware. I don't want to guess, but my understanding is that the community centre was included as part of that development because it was something which local residents had come together and wanted to see. Since then, I understand that the applicant has undertaken a public engagement process, which is something which is done outside of the planning application process, and the results of that, there wasn't really any mention of the requirement for the community use area itself. However, we did consider it, as it had been asked for previously by residents, it was something good that we should retain. There is a restrictive condition within the members' pack here, which will restrict the use from uses which could have a further impact upon local amenity and also the local highway network. So whilst we've left it open enough that we believe it would be occupied, we have restricted its use so that it cannot cause an impact in terms of additional traffic, congestion, parking issues, and also any sort of use which wouldn't be considered to be acceptable within a residential setting.
Did you want to come back on that, Councillor? No?
No, thank you. That's
all
fine.
good, thank you. Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chairman. Construction management, construction logistics as it is in here. Are we able to add something about lighting? I just have some concerns that this site is very close to residential property, and I'd be worried about site lighting to be affecting the residents. Can we just condition the hours that the lights are on site? Nice and simple.
Auto switches? Or sensors or
PIR?
something?
I think just it should only be on during construction hours, which is 8 till 6 and 8 till 1.
Yeah. Do you want to come back?
Yeah, that's perfect. And I'd be happy to move with officers' recommendations on this.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Davis. Right, any other members? Councillor Dott. So, Councillor Dott's looking to second. So, we are moved and we are seconded. Good debate. I don't think we've got any additional amendments to make to the pack we have in front of us. So, can I take a show of hands, please, for officers' recommendation? So that is unanimous, 7 out of 7. I can confirm agenda item 8 this evening is approved. Thank you. Okay, so that brings us to the end. Thank you very much to members for your excellent scrutiny this evening. Thank you very much to officers for your excellent support and answering all those questions. And can I thank members of the public who have been here this evening, and can also thank anybody who's been watching us on YouTube. So on that note, I think we'll draw the meeting to a close and wish everybody a good night. Thank you. We off? We're off.